Good everyone, I hope you guys have an amazing day. So in the last episode, I did mention about the carbon footprint and BEI, about the benchmark, which is pretty cool. So and it's all to do with the stationary asset which we discussed, right? Now, what I'm going to do in this video, I'll talk about the vehicle assets, like for instance, you as a business, right? You could have um, the stationary vehicle. Um, like for instance, you could have a regular car, right, for transportation, or a private, bus or whatever, four wheelers, I would say, or you can have your private, excuse me, private jet to travel from one place to another, right? CEO of a company sometimes travel in their own private jet. So we need to account for the carbon emission for all of this asset. So that's pretty simple to do that using Net Zero Cloud, right? Because you can record um, your asset information, right, in a vehicle asset. For instance, what do? You just go to this Gecko icon and look for vehicle. There's something called vehicle asset emission source. So obviously you need to capture uh, information about, say, you're owning a company. So let's look at this one, an existing example. It's pretty simple, right? You just click on new and you get all this field options. Um, so you get, obviously fill the name. There are different types of the vehicle type, fleet vehicle, company shuttle, and other. It's more flexible, or you can add your own, pickless value. That's a different story. But just for the sake of argument, let's say we're talking about a private jet, right? The CEO of a company is a private jet. So you choose the private jet here, yeah, and then you put the carbon emission scope. So we can scope one, scope two, scope three. Since it's a uh, private jet, so we put it as a scope three. Now, I'm not going to cover what scope one, scope two, scope three. I talked about it in detail. So if you are not sure, if this is the first time you're watching it, I highly encourage you to go and watch my first video. Right? Okay. So then you have the vehicle details, right? The jet number and ID kind of stuff, right? License number, lease ID, whatever, right? That's all when it comes to your asset information. Pretty simple, right? It doesn't contain much stuff. You just mark the fuel in the vehicle type, the license, the plate, registration number, and whatever. You fill that information here and the kind of emission you wanted to do. Now, that's the first step, now, right? Now you might want to record the fuel type, right? Obviously, you wanted to measure the distance the jet covered. Could be 50,000 miles for in a year, and amount of fuel consumed. That's what actually caused emission, right? Just having a jet, or six-seater plane or eight-seater plane in your garage. I mean, garage in the sense means the big garage which stores your eight-seater plane, won't cause any emission, right? It's when it started to fly, when it's in the air, when it started to burn the fuel for combustion, that's where the actual emission comes in the picture, right? So you need to measure those as a part of energy source. So if you look at the related information, right? So you see a lot of energy information here. So you have for 2019, let's look at the 2019. So you captured, okay, it's the name of, it's obviously the name, and you link that the stationary emission source. Sorry, not the stationary emission source, vehicle asset emission source. That's your jet, and then you cover the period, and you put the other emission factor. Then you put the type of fuel. It's a jet fuel, obviously. Using a jet. There are different options here as well. Different stuff you can use, but just to keep it simple, it's a jet fuel. Fuel efficiency, they measure. Don't worry about it. Fuel consumption, how many fuel, in the gallons of fuel that's been used, and aircraft efficiency and kilometers, if you wanted to measure, right? So once that's done, it will automatically recalculate this information for you behind the scene using the emission factor. We talked about it, right? So once that's done, you can allocate the carbon record for it. So when you allocate the carbon record, it will calculate the information behind the scene. It's pretty much the same like your stationary asset, right? So let me give you one more example here, right? Let's say you wanted to calculate three energy source for say three, four. I think the four record you're doing here, right? So from 1 to 31st and in 1st of April to um, July, sorry, June. So you capture the four information here, right? The fuel consumption. So when you link this information to the carbon footprint, so what will happen is that it will do certain calculation behind the scene. So how to calculate? I'll show you. So let's look at the carbon record for 2019, right? So you come here, right? And as you can see, only one record counts because there's only one record associated with it, and the reporting period and the fuel consumption, right? Because I showed you the fuel consumption because there's only one record, so it's pulling the information for the one. Pretty simple, right? Okay, now let's look at the 2020. It's a little bit different because you got four records here. Okay, so if you go here, you say four record, and it will say total fuel consumption. So if I go back, right, if I go back to this one, let's say, here the fuel consumption is not 16,000, it's 4,000, okay? But if you go here, it's 4,000 as well. So the way the the footprint works here, right, it actually combines the sum of all the record that's associated with this carbon footprint. In this case, those four records are linked. Okay, so that's why you can see the four record count. It's based on the period you define, right? First of, see, reporting date, start date, and end date, right? If you put the, uh, start date from first and end date, say, 1st of March, then you won't get the full record. It will only get one, right? So, and then it get it. This is the information by it calculates behind the scene by summing up, right? The the total fuel consumption. The same goes with the total three scope emissions. So it calculates the stuff behind you based on the four energy sources. So this information is very important from a business perspective because you will be not only storing the stationary asset information, but you will be also storing vehicle asset information, which is very important in my opinion, right? So this is how you actually capture the vehicle information to keep track of your net zero. I'm sorry, to help you achieve the net zero, right? Because obviously you need to understand the emission, and based on that, you need to work on certain things, right? Just to uh, offset that emission, what you are actually doing as a business. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to cover. I hope you guys have an amazing Monday. Adios.